They're not going to push my voice. This is 3 weeks out and I'm still struggling, so. All right. So I'm going to start with epithelium. If you have any ultrastructure questions, you can probably just come and see me after we're finished with this review now and we can go through ultrastructure stuff. All right. So with epithelium, we're going to start, remember with epithelium, just a quick recap. Here we have cells that attach to each other. They also attach to the underlying basement membrane, of which they secrete a portion of the membrane, that's the laminar part of the membrane, and then the reticular part of the membrane comes from the underlying connective tissue. And epithelia line open spaces. So you're going to see lumens, and if you think our gastrointestinal tract probably is the best example, it starts outside here, you go all the way through, and it comes back outside again. Okay, all of that is a space all the way down. Any of the little tubules we have in the body, like ducts, will have a lumen in the center. All of those are going to be lined by some kind of epithelium. So we're going to start off describing the different kinds of epithelium, and the simplest epithelium is the simple squamous epithelium. And we've told you that probably the easiest example to look at initially is found in the glomerulus of the kidney. And the epithelium that we're going to be looking for here is going to be this epithelium where we have a very, very skinny cell. In fact, the cell is so thin that its nucleus is actually bulging into the surface. Into the space. Okay, so you can see here these individual nuclei bulging up into the space. Their cytoplasm is so thin we can barely see it. So that is going to be your simple squamous epithelium. We can immediately contrast that here to the next kind of simple epithelium, which is a simple cuboidal epithelium. And remember, with a simple cuboidal epithelium, you have epithelium where the cells are same height as they are width, approximately. With that, you also would expect to see round nuclei. Okay? So when you start seeing these rounded nuclei, they no longer bulge into the luminal space. And you can see, let's take a look at this one, even though it's a little bit swung on the side here. You can see that these cells are about the same height as they are wide. So this here is a cuboidal epithelium. Now, what should be interesting to you, and you will certainly cover it in more detail when we do kidney, but what you can see is here we have cells that are same height as width. We have a very large lumen. Here we have a tubule where the diameter is about the same as this one. Also cuboidal epithelium. See, the cells are about the same width as they are height, but look how much bigger this cell is than this one. And so now you can see that the luminal space is much smaller. But this is still a simple cuboidal epithelium, okay? So just to show you that they can look slightly different to each other. So when I ask questions, what I would do is I could put the arrow here, and I would then say this is a nucleus of what kind of cell? You want to answer? It's a cell of a simple squamous epithelium, okay? Or a simple squamous epithelial cell.
Dr. Opperman, are you going to, is it the top arrow or the middle of the arrow?
The top, whenever unless I say otherwise, it's going to be at the top, okay? I could also, in this case, I could say, my pointer is spanning what kind of cell? And that would be simple cuboidal cell. Correct. And then, of course, the other way I could word that question would be to say the arrow is spanning the cell of what kind of epithelium? And that would be the next guy along. My arrow is spanning a cell of what kind of epithelium?
It looks like simple cuboidal.
Simple cuboidal epithelium. Very good. Okay.
Good job, man.
So you can see I can get the same, pretty much the same answer, assess your knowledge to the same extent by wording the question slightly differently. Now we've also said that we have a simple squamous epithelium lining blood vessels. Okay? And when we go up and we look at these blood vessels, here we have a blood vessel. We start recognizing blood vessels because they usually have blood cells in them. Funny enough, this one has mostly white blood cells, so that's why they've got nuclei. But you can see here where they've got red blood cells inside of them. All right? Now, going back to this one, again, see how the nuclei are bulging up into the lumen? So these are very flattened cells with the nuclei bulging into the lumen. And then this, in this case, who's my next person in line over there? I would, if I had a pointer pointing here and I say, name the epithelium, be specific. Endothelium, okay? And remember that it's going to look slightly different in different types of blood vessels. So here we have a very large blood vessel. And here you can see the nuclei don't really bulge up into the lumen, but again, you can see how flattened this cell is. All right? So this is an endothelial cell. Then the other kind of simple squamous epithelium that we have is the kind that doesn't line the insides of organs or vessels, it lines the outsides. And again, for the blood vessel, the other way I could word that question would be name the epithelium lining this blood vessel. Okay? And then I would expect, obviously, endothelium. Now in this case here, for me to be able to show you that we're really looking at the outside of an organ, not the inside of an organ, you would...
Sorry, what if you're talking about the outside of a vessel with that question?
Now, the outside of a vessel is going to be connective tissue. Okay? The outside of a vessel won't have a mesothelium.
Okay.
So, actually, except in the aorta. When you're looking in the pleural cavity, you're going to have part of the aorta comes out. That's actually going to sit in the pleural cavity. You would expect that to have a mesothelium on the outside of it. Okay, but it's one of the few places, and let's not go there until we do cardiovascular. But in this case here, to be able to ask the question about the next kind of epithelium, I'd have to actually show you something like this in low power, and then go all the way up to the high power here. And say, my pointer is on what kind of epithelium, or I could say, what is the name of the epithelium lining the outside of this organ? And I would expect mesothelium.
Would you say be specific, or would you just say what kind of?
If I'm saying to you, name the epithelium on the outside of this organ, I do not have to say be specific, because I'm telling you it's on the outside of an organ. All right? If I just say, name this epithelium, and I'm not saying anything else, and for all you know, this is a ginormous blood vessel, and we're sitting in the lumen, okay, so it could be an endothelium. Simple squamous epithelium would be fine. All right. Anybody else have problems with cuboidal epithelium? All right, I think that thyroid gland example is probably great, but the kidneys, to me, is a better example. Let's move on to the next one, which will be simple columnar.